I speak with Barbara Greenberg, please?
Yes, this is Barbara Greenberg.
I have an important telecomputer call from J.D. Sumner.
President Richard M. Nixon. Privacy address, 1974.
Many things are necessary to lead a full, free life. But none of these is more important than the most basic of all individual rights, the right to privacy. At no time in the past has our government known so much about so many of its individual citizens. Government bureaucracies seem to thrive on collecting additional information. That information is now stored in over 7,000 government computers. And the names of over 150 million Americans are now in computer banks scattered across the country. In short, data banks affect nearly every man, woman, and child in the United States today. Here is the heart of the matter. A system that fails to respect its citizens' right to privacy fails to respect the citizens themselves. Careers have been ruined, marriages have been wrecked, reputations built up over a lifetime have been destroyed by the misuse or abuse of data technology in both private and public hands. Advanced technology has created new opportunities for America as a nation, but it has also created the possibility for new abuses of the individual American citizen. Adequate safeguards must always stand watch so that man remains the master and never becomes the victim of the computer.
Clearly, the computer, because it can do things that much cheaper than we could do in the past, lets us do things which we couldn't afford to do. Many of these things have great social value. I think we wouldn't want to go back to dealing with airlines that didn't have computerized reservation system. That's an incredible convenience for the passenger. So they are great advantages. But as we tend to computerize more and more information about individuals, as we get closer in time to 1984, then it's possible to get more towards Orwell's 1984.
Bonjour, les télécommunications, je viens pour vous installer l'annuaire. Où souhaitez-vous l'installer?
Vous faites quelque chose...
La prise téléphonique et une prise de courant,
Bon,
c'est
je
tout.
vais vous montrer. La prise du téléphone...
The Saint-Malo experiment is part of a top priority government plan to develop the French computer industry. The initial reason for distributing the electronic terminals is to replace the telephone book.
Peut-être avez-vous de la famille ou des amis à Saint-Malo?
Oui, mes parents.
The terminals are at the moment just used for locating telephone numbers. But in the future, they can be linked to electronic mail, computerized shopping, electronic banking, and a host of other computerized information networks.
Et voilà.
Allô?
Madame Debord?
Non, Sophie.
Excusez-moi, ne quittez pas, je vous passe votre sœur.
Oui.
Government experts predict that mass computerization will take hold and become as indispensable to society as electricity. And so France is plunging into the future with a policy committed to socializing the computer. Low manufacturing costs and revolutionary changes in the size of computers are what's making such mass distribution possible. The past 30 years have been a race to make computers smaller and cheaper. In 1951, UNIVAC-1 occupied a space 10 cubic feet in size, and it cost $701,000. Today, the same amount of computing power can be stored in a silicon chip, which costs $19. An estimated 5 trillion clerical workers would be needed to do the same work done by computers worldwide. The biggest record keeper of them all is the federal government. At last count, there were over 5,800 personal data banks, holding an average of 18 files on about 3 billion people. Congressional concern over the increased use of computers in federal record keeping led to the signing of the Privacy Act in 1974. This act provides that each individual has the right to find out which federal record systems keep files on him, what's in those files, and the right to correct those files. The listing of the federal file systems is published yearly by the Federal Register. To get to see all your files, you must write 5,800 separate letters. Few people have the time, inclination, or $1,000 for postage to exercise fully their right to privacy. And there are times when requests to see files are refused. Singer and anti-war activist Joan Baez sued several intelligence agencies to learn the contents of her files. A United States District Court issued a ruling refusing to release certain of her records because of national security considerations. During the 1960s, Martin Luther King was the target of intense governmental surveillance. At the Center for National Security Studies, Morton Halperin.
The FBI, particularly J. Edgar Hoover, who was then the director of the FBI, reached the judgment that Martin Luther King Jr. was a great threat to the nation. Hoover knew that nothing that King was doing was illegal, and therefore that there was no way that he could present evidence to the Attorney General and ask that he be indicted. So he ordered the FBI to undertake its own program designed to try to destroy the reputation and the political effectiveness of Martin Luther King Jr. And this involved not only physical surveillance, but it involved bugging of his hotel rooms and tapping of his telephone lines. Information was provided privately to journalists. People were given briefings in the Congress about his alleged improper behavior in an attempt to discredit him. And then at one point, the FBI sent King a letter shortly before he was to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, which in effect told him that if he did not commit suicide, the Bureau would make public this information which they claimed they had, which they said would be politically embarrassing to him. I think many people's reaction is, if you have nothing to hide, why do you care if you're tapped? But if you then start thinking about what you said on the phone and whether you will feel comfortable having a third party, a stranger, sitting and listening in, I think you come to realize that it is a real invasion of your privacy.
In 1978, Congress passed the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. With few exceptions, it requires warrants for all wiretaps within the United States. In the area of international communications, the privacy of Americans corresponding with foreigners is not so well protected. The headquarters of one of the nation's largest and most highly secret intelligence agencies is located at Fort Meade, Maryland. It is said that the National Security Agency's computer capabilities are 20 years ahead of private industry.
The National Security Agency was created in 1952 by a secret directive from President Truman to the Secretary of Defense. It's basically responsible for collecting information that moves in the air or across wires. That means telephone messages, cable traffic, telex messages, radar. It gathers that information and attempts to analyze it to determine what it can tell you about the activities of foreign governments. Sometimes that means simply reading unclassified and uncoded messages. Sometimes it means trying to break diplomatic codes and figuring out what the information means. NSA routinely monitors various channels of international cable traffic. They essentially have the technical capacity to take any cable line that they want anywhere in the world. They're limited simply by the fact that there's so much traffic that they can't take it all. They take what they want, put it into their computer, and then by using code words like narcotics or drugs or terrorism or oil or energy, they extract from that massive cable traffic the information that they're interested in. Any American has to assume that if he's sending cables out of the United States, receiving cables from the United States on any subject of interest to the foreign policy of the United States, that that cable may well end up being collected by NSA and distributed to the State Department, the Commerce Department, and the Treasury Department.
Commerce in buying and selling mailing lists has become big business and big politics. Millionaire Richard Viguerie heads a direct mail company which raises funds for the new right. Viguerie raises over $30 million a year through mailings for his conservative clients. As part of the bargain, he gets to keep all the names on his clients' list. That's how he builds his file.
I used to say that this room was probably the most important room in America to conservatives. But now that we have Mr. Reagan in the Oval Office, I no longer can say that. We have about 3,000, maybe 4,000 of these magnetic tapes here in this room. Each one can hold about 650,000 names and addresses. I guess if you unduplicated all the names here, we'd probably have about 25 million separate names and addresses. Of those 25 million, maybe about 4.5 million we've identified are conservative on one or more issues. Yeah. We get the names from hundreds and hundreds of mailings that we do each year. We mail about 70 or more million letters each year. And we will mail to gun lists for gun clients. We'll mail to religious type lists for our, say, pro-life clients. Did we get that WLF house file out? Over the years, has been in one central place, the names and addresses of all of the people who consider themselves conservatives and will send money through the mail. When a new conservative cause comes along, we don't have to go out there and invent the wheel all over again. We've got a list of people we can go right to. Direct mail to the conservative movement means a great, great deal. We really wouldn't have a political direct mail industry if it weren't for the computer. It used to be that it might take several weeks to get a mailing of 100,000 out now. And we can mail 100,000 letters in a day's time with no big effort.
About 3% respond. Does Viguerie feel he's invading the privacy of the 97% who do not?
I feel strongly that it is not an invasion of privacy, no more than advertisements in the magazine that you subscribe to are included, or advertisements in your daily newspapers, or advertisements on radio or television.
I personally feel that when an organization that I've given my name to for a specific reason sells my name and address to somebody else, that's an invasion of my privacy. They have told someone else something about me, that I'm interested in a special kind of product, for example. Because of this concern with organizations selling my name, some years ago I adopted the practice of coding my name when I gave it to someone else. So, for example, when I became a member of the Book of the Month Club, the name that I went by was Bamalub Armor. So now when I get mail addressed in that fashion, I know that the Book of the Month Club has sold my name and address. They have done this, taken my name and address, and sold it without my knowledge. They have done it for their own profit. I think that that name and the fact that I'm interested in books is something that belongs to me and not to the Book of the Month Club. Here's junk mail from Colonial Penn Insurance Company addressed to Colpa Armor. Research Institute recommendations, I get mail under Rheinrem Armor. I recently subscribed to a magazine called Next under the name of Rex Armor. I don't know what my postman thinks about all the people, all these aliases that I use, all the mail for these strange people coming to this one address. But it does let me know who it is that's selling my name.
Hello, this is Reverend Jesse Jackson calling from Operation Push. We are now using a new telecomputer system that lets you talk back. We need two-way communications.
Telephone Broadcasting Systems offers a marketing technique which its executives predict may one day replace direct mail. It's based on marrying the telephone with the computer to produce the telecomputer. Paul Greenberg.
To start off with, in Dallas, we have a cross-reference bank of people of 72 million Americans who are cross-referenced as to their voter's registration, driver's license, specialty purchases, and magazine subscriptions. And for instance, if we would like to zero in on a particular segment of the population for a particular call, we can say, for instance, take this area. We can zoom in on this area just like a rifle shot. And by making a call into that area, we will then know that everybody that we call in that area will have an inherent interest in the reason that we're calling and a reason to answer us back. First, the operator selects the tape that we're going to be using in that message. She then places it in the dialer. She then tells the computer to start dialing. The computer then dials 4 numbers at one time. The first person who answers, their name is placed on the screen for her to see. When she introduces the call, if the person agrees to accept the call, she then begins the broadcast.
Hello? May I speak with Barbara Greenberg, please?
Yes, this is Barbara Greenberg.
I have an important telecomputer call from J.D. Sumner, Elvis Presley's bass singer and closest friend. One moment, and I'll connect you.
Hello, I'm J.D. Sumner, Elvis's bass singer and friend for 25 years, going back long before Heartbreak Hotel. If he were alive today, I know
the tape
that
then
Elvis
takes
would
over
be talking to
and
you.
gets to a point where it would ask the person the first question.
I understand that you're one of Elvis's real fans. Is that right?
If the person does not respond to that first question, the tape then prompts the person and restates the question.
I want you to talk to me. You are a real Elvis fan, aren't you?
Oh, yes, I am.
Our experience has been that people really enjoy talking to the computer, and especially when they hear that first prompt when the person says, "I didn't hear you," and they know it's a tape, it just does something to them. It makes them just answer any question that we ask them almost.
Elvis took me into his confidence. I'll tell you the real truth about it.
Once in a while you hear somebody say, "I don't like speaking to a computer," and then they go right on and give us what we want to know anyway.
And there's something that Elvis, I know, would want you to have. The one thing besides being able to hear Elvis sing that his fans cherished most was an Elvis scarf.
The person gets to hear the whole tape and give any answers that are required. And at that point in time, if we desire, we can play back what the person has told us to confirm whatever commitment or promise that person has made. At that point, a completed call is sent a mailogram automatically by the computer, which confirms whatever commitment we've received from the person over the phone. In the collection area, we use it for account collection, master charge, Visa collection, past due automobile accounts, bad check collection. When we ask a person to make a commitment, when they do make it, when they hear the playback of their own voice saying that they're going to make the payment, it psychologically reinforces that fact, and they normally follow through and do make that payment.
Well, I'm John Johnson from Jordan Marsh, and my patience has finally reached its limit. I expect payment now. This debt will not wait any longer. Will you be mailing the amount due today or tomorrow? Speak to me. Your response or lack of it will become a permanent part of your record. Will you be mailing the amount due today or tomorrow?
I'll take care of it today for sure, and I'm sorry I let it slip.
And will you be paying this by certified check or money order?
It'll be a certified check. I'm going to my bank this afternoon.
Now, so that you realize that this is a commitment and not merely a promise, I will play your commitment back to you now.
I'll take care of this today for sure, and I'm sorry I let it slip. It'll be a certified check. I'm going to my bank this afternoon.
Jim Denny manages computer operations at AmeriFirst Federal Savings and Loan in Miami.
Terrific.
Okay. Response time?
Part of his job is to maintain the security of his bank's nerve center, the computer room.
We feel that we've done a very adequate job in securing our data center. We're in a very large building, and in no place in this building is there any indication of where our data center is. All the entrances and exits to our data center are monitored through another security type system on another floor in this building. We also have cameras that monitor every entrance and exit into this area. Well, there's numerous things that an individual could do if they had the ability to get into our system.
Nova obtained this wiretap of a bank transaction to illustrate the dangers of electronic data communications. Computer thieves will tap financial data lines to gain access to and manipulate electronic fund transfers. Computer spies will tap lines to collect confidential information about individuals and institutions as it travels between computers. How difficult is it to wiretap a data line? What it takes is the right equipment and access to the right location.
Load up the program here. I'm going to get my program loaded up in here. There we go. 313032 to trap and run. Get him. We will get him. We will get him. Yeah, they're coming by. We'll just wait our turn. We've got to wait our turn in here. Ooh, let's back that one up. Let's back it up. There we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. We got that one. That's the one. That's the one I want. 3102. Take this cable out. And then get this up to the side. Get that turn on. Give me that power strip. Give me the power strip. Just okay. There we have it. Let's go.
Electronic threats to data communications privacy and security are emerging as international institutions computerize.
Citibank embarked upon a global communications network in the mid-70s.
Peter Wolf, Citibank Senior Vice President.
We now have over 200 of our branches in 100 countries, hooked together, if you will, over our own private lease line network globally, as we mentioned. We have major switches in Hong Kong, London, Bahrain, and New York here. The international flow of funds has increased significantly in recent years. The clearinghouse interbank payment system through which the funds flow to the member banks from around the world is in excess of $120 billion now per day. Citibank alone processes in excess of $30 billion a day on behalf of its customers. We are, in fact, at this point, totally committed to the electronic banking concept. That is to say, the ability to deal with our customers, both for information processing and for transaction processing, through electronics.
Citibank transmits its customers' information around the world. All electronic communications are first authenticated with a code system. Between the United States and Europe, for example, information goes first to London, where computers at Citibank's European switch check each authenticity code. No record of transmission is kept here, and only seconds after leaving its origin, the information is switched to Paris, one final European destination. Here, Citibank computers recheck each authenticity code, process the information, and generate hard copies for record keeping. The speed and accuracy of these international transactions are the basis for Citibank's corporate commitment to computers. Peter Wolf.
The technology is with us. We have built an enormous amount of resources because of our beginning so early to use mini computers, large computers, interactive computers. And we are now leveraging those resources and skills to build what we think is the future of commercial banking, electronics.
But do electronic funds transfer systems threaten personal privacy? Paul Armour.
Several years ago, I was a member of a workshop. A set of computer people law enforcement people who were gathered together and asked to pretend that we were consultants to the Russian secret police, and given the task of designing for them a system which would keep track of all the Soviet citizens plus all the foreigners who happened to be within the boundaries of the USSR. After considerable study, the workshop concluded that the best system to build for the KGB, the secret police, was an electronic funds transfer system. For the reason that electronic fund transfer system not only knows what you're buying, but where you are in real time at the time you're making your financial transaction.
Some privacy experts acknowledge these threats and consider them beyond existing computer capacities.
When you or I go to our banking terminal, we're one of perhaps several thousand people that use that terminal to withdraw funds using our bank card in a day. And if you multiply that by the other thousands of people that do that, and take a look at the information flow to the processing centers, you'll find that in order to get the kind of information that people fear will be collected, and then to sort it and make some meaning out of it, as opposed to just processing it serially as it comes in, you have to increase the computer capacity by a factor of perhaps 1,000.
The banking industry has developed its enormous computer capacity to handle countless online data communications every day. At the sending end, the main bank computer is called a central processing unit, or CPU. It transmits data in on-off type electronic pulses, called bits. The bits then pass through a device called a modem. Modems allow CPUs and automatic tellers to communicate by translating the discrete bits into continuous electronic messages. Receptor modems translate the message back into discrete bits of data. The bits then feed into a receiving terminal, which can be located at another branch office, an automatic teller machine, or even another financial institution. How does AmeriFirst protect its data communications?
We've taken the necessary steps to secure that area. We did that through data encryption. Data encryption is a means and method of scrambling data that is transmitted over phone lines to make it impossible for anybody to interpret that information as it's being passed back and forth.
Miami-based Raquel Milgo Electronics manufactures encryption systems like the one AmeriFirst installed. While very few institutions presently use encryption systems, it seems inevitable that their privacy and security benefits will make this a high-growth industry. Product manager Nick Sclair.
Assume that this is a branch at AmeriFirst. We'll say that we're not with multiple branches. There's a single branch talking to a computer located downtown. This would be a remote site branch on the right-hand side, and we're originating a transaction and then sending that across telephone wires, and now that would be monitored on the device located in the center there.
This is what a wiretapper monitoring the line would see. Utilizing a single passkey that contains a secret code, the system transforms an unscrambled message into a scrambled mess that is almost impossible to decode. The code uses a mathematical standard called DES, Mark Cole.
The data encryption standard is an algorithm that was developed by a group of scientists. The algorithm itself is taking a series of numbers, executing several block transformations, product transformations on it, such that when they come out, they're all scrambled around. The algorithm is a published algorithm. Anybody can do this. What makes it secret is the little key. There's a secret key, a secret group of numbers, which is actually a 56-bit binary number. When this is fed into two algorithms, they both operate on the input data equally, such that the data coming out is the same. So you can actually encrypt and decrypt data.
Who are Raquel Milgo's first customers?
Essentially, it's been the financial industry. And I think what a lot of people are waiting for, not for installing these, is the fact that they believe they want to see disaster. They want to see something come close to home. And I've heard that likened to perhaps what the industry is waiting for is a 3 Mile Island disaster of data processing.
Not one of the world's 8 largest commercial banks encrypts all of its data communications. 4 of the 8 encrypt at strategic places. The other 4 don't encrypt at all. Wiretaps can happen at 3 points in data communication systems. In an inside job, an institution's main computer can be tapped directly. Or outside, a mini-computer can be attached directly to phone lines. Finally, invaders can break computer access codes and then dial directly into the system itself by public telephone. The responsibility for protecting United States government communications belongs to the National Security Agency. NSA routinely makes codes to maintain communication security and breaks codes to conduct its foreign intelligence mission. How do code systems work? Inside New Mexico's Sandia laboratories, Dr. Gus Simmons.
Cryptographic systems have as their main function hiding information, of concealing the content of a message. In order to do that, the transmitter and the receiver have a piece of information that they know in secret that's unknown to other people outside the system. This piece of information is called key, and the purpose of the key is that you mix it in a complicated fashion with the text whose content you're going to conceal to generate something that's called a cipher. And the recipe with which you do the encryption has to have some special properties. This single key cylinder lock illustrates a single key cryptographic system quite well. The key that's used to lock the lock is also the key that's used to unlock it. In a single key system, clearly, if the key that's in the possession of either the transmitter or receiver becomes known to an outsider, then he can both encrypt and decrypt messages. All the parties to a single key cryptographic system must exchange in advance keys in secret, as we've indicated here with the red flags. If there was a modest commercial system with 10,000 subscribers, there'd be 50 million keys to be exchanged in secret in advance of communication and maintained in secrecy. Each individual would have to maintain protective custody of 9,999 keys. And it's this horrendous problem of generating large numbers of keys which have to be exchanged in secret in advance of any communication and maintained in secret that limits the applicability of single key systems to commercial applications.
In France, the television, too, will soon be linked with computer terminals in people's homes. The system will ultimately replace post offices by allowing everyone to use their smart cards as electronic mailbox keys. The cards grant entry into a system called Teletel. By entering names and numerical addresses into Teletel, instantaneous written communication will become possible. When you need an electronic greeting card to send, there will be a variety to choose from. And when up to the second timetables are sought, they will be available at the push of a key. Naturally, subscribers want some kind of electronic substitute for the sealed envelope that protects the privacy of their paper mail. Single-key cryptographic systems are too cumbersome to apply here, but a new two-key system might be the answer. Gus Simmons.
You recall that in the single key lock, there were 2 functions performed by that key: encryption or locking and decryption or unlocking. Now, in this lock, we've separated the 2 functions that were combined in a single key before, the unlocking and locking functions. You'll notice that the keys here are quite different from each other, and in fact are sufficiently different that even if you possessed one of the keys, you couldn't deduce the other one. One of these keys operates to lock the lock, that is to say, rotate it in the counterclockwise direction, but cannot rotate it in the other, while the other key locks it, but can't unlock it. And in that sense, it is a good model for two-key cryptographic systems in which we have one key with which we encrypt and another key with which we decrypt, and the keys are sufficiently different that even if you know one of the keys and have a great amount of computing power at your command, that you can't deduce the other key.
MIT mathematician Ron Rivest and colleagues Adi Shamir and Len Edelman found a way to make the two-key model work. The Rivest scheme is based on numbers, more specifically on a set of numbers that can only be divided by themselves and by 1. These numbers are called primes. Computers can easily generate an endless supply of very large prime numbers. And computers can quickly multiply two very large primes together. But no computer, not even any bank of computers, can expect to divide a large product into its constituent primes. Therefore, someone using the Rivest scheme can freely publish the product of his two large primes as his public key without fear that his secret key, the primes themselves, will be disclosed.
By splitting the keys in a two-key cryptographic system, we'd also separated the function of authentication and secrecy or privacy. We can use that separation of functions to make it possible to attach digital signatures to digital messages, something that would otherwise be impossible. To illustrate the basic idea, if I wish to send a message as A to recipient B and to sign it in such a way that he can prove to a third party that the message came from me, I first take the message and encrypt it using my secret key to produce a cipher that only I could have generated. It's the important thing about the two-key system, that we now have a cipher that could have only been generated by me, therefore it's associated with an action that I've taken. I then take that cipher and super encrypt it using the intended recipient, B's, public key, something that could have been done by anyone. However, the message, the cipher that's being encrypted could have only been generated by me. Now, the resulting super cipher can only be read by B. He has the secret half of the B key. So only B can gain access to this. But when he opens it and finds inside a cipher that could have only been generated by me, that can be verified by anyone by showing that my public key is the one that decrypts the cipher. It can be proven that the message had to originate with me. So in that sense, there's now a signature attached to a digital message.
The Rivest team recently designed a silicon chip that will implement their prime number scheme. But a more general issue has arisen between the academic community and NSA. That issue is whether free cryptographic research interferes with the government's ability to protect the national security. NSA is concerned about the international spread of U.S. code research.
The National Security Agency has two missions. One is to protect the security of certain U.S. communications, and the other is to gather foreign intelligence.
In a rare interview for television, NSA legal counsel Daniel Schwartz.
NSA is concerned that the publication of certain research in the field of cryptology may have an adverse impact on the national security by either improving the position of certain potential adversaries with regard to our secure telecommunications system, or by limiting the ability of the United States to gather foreign intelligence. In light of these concerns, NSA has worked with a study group formed by the American Council on Education to address the possibility that research in the field of cryptology may have an adverse impact on the national security. That study group has recommended, with one dissent, that NSA initiate a pre-publication review procedure. NSA has determined to initiate such a procedure and to work with researchers on a cooperative and voluntary basis to identify and hopefully discourage the publication of information that may have an adverse impact on the national security.
I think we're in a period of extremely rapid change. We'll probably have more change in the next 15 years than occurred in the Industrial Revolution in a period of 150 years. And to manage our transition through that change and keep our liberties, will mean that we're all going to have to work at it.